Welcome back to the channel, y'all. We are Couch Muscle Incorporated, and today we're back to movies, off of the topic of sexual assault.
Yes.
Now let's get into it. Today we will be talking about Quentin Tarantino's ninth film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, starring Brad Pitt as Handsome Man and Leonardo DiCaprio as handsome, but not as handsome.
Older handsome man, Brad Pitt. He's getting old, isn't he?
He's still hot, bro.
Yeah, he's very attractive. I had that thought many times watching this film. Just like, wow, Brad Pitt, look at you go.
I was like, Angelina Jolie, you messed up, bro.
Are they not together anymore?
I don't think so.
I thought they were. This is news to me. Anyway, that's not the topic of this video.
I'm not sure.
Stay tuned for our analysis on Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie's relationship. That'll be fun.
So you have some pretty strong opinions on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I wouldn't say strong opinions, but I would say this movie was very interesting to me for one reason. And that was, this movie is very much about a real-life event that I had zero clue about going into the movie. So when I watched it, I was really confused. And I remember you and I looked at each other when we walked out, and it was just like, was that a good movie or was it not a good movie? Like, it's kind of tough to tell.
But now with historical context, I think we've come to the conclusion that it is a really good movie.
It's a good movie.
It is not Tarantino's best movie by far.
Absolutely not. It's definitely like, it's a step down from his previous work. That being said, a step down for Tarantino, he's still like
top level.
Yeah, he's one of the best directors working today. And the story is about the Charles Manson murders. And the actress Sharon Tate, who was killed in her home by 3 people.
Right.
And
followers of Charles Manson.
Followers of Charles
Manson again.
We've been dealing with that this entire weekend. Marilyn Manson killed Cheryl Tate. But it's interesting because this is Quentin Tarantino telling that story his own way, completely changing real life details of it in a way where there's like a hero at the end and Sharon Tate doesn't die.
Spoilers.
But it's...
Oh my gosh, you need to put a spoiler tag.
Okay, whatever. So it's interesting because when I was watching this movie, I was just like, who is Margot Robbie in this movie? What is the point that this movie is trying to get across? Because their stories do not intersect until the last few minutes.
Yeah.
Few minutes. So it's like, as somebody who's unaware of the story, you're just confused. And I feel like this isn't a story that especially people our age are going to be super aware of. Probably like a little bit vaguely, but like even at that point, like I'm sure that they'd be missing out details like the whole that like ranch where all the girls in the cult lived and stuff like that.
That's a real place where people actually live.
So in the movie, there's this like little commune of women. They're all like young, maybe in their early teens to 20s.
The Manson family.
Yeah, the Manson family. And they all live on this old like film set where they would film Westerns with this one older guy named George who's blind. And they would like take advantage of him and like they all lived there while Charles Manson was, feeding them drugs like crazy and really putting them in a weird state of mind and then convincing them to literally go murder people.
Yep.
And if you don't know that happened in real life, when you watch this movie, you're just kind of confused because it doesn't come across as that at first. It's just like all these girls live here. There's a bunch of hippies, as they call them.
Yeah, it's really strange.
Yeah.
But I kind of remembered hearing stuff about Charles Manson as the movie continued. Charles Manson does actually show up in the movie, but only a single time.
Yeah.
And it's weird because that scene, without realizing exactly who that is, doesn't it's so out of place.
It's out of place and it never comes back. So it's like a
because
scene.
It's for the audience.
Yeah, it's for the people that know. And when you watch that, like I did, it's just kind of confusing. But I'd love to see the movie again just to kind of see the story for what it's supposed to be and not what I was able to interpret. But I'd like to talk about a few things. I'd like to talk about the characters, Cliff Booth and Rick Dalton. Those two performances by Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, I almost said Da Vinci, are amazing.
Those are two of the best actors working today.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt needs to get his... I mean, I think he does get his chops, but he's a big-time great actor.
Yeah, he's amazing. And it's like, it's easy to look at him as like a guy that's just been in like a bunch of stupid action movies. And his little cameo in Deadpool 2, just like as just a working actor, but like he does have chops. And same thing with Leonardo DiCaprio. I loved his performance in this way more than say The Revenant, which he won an Oscar for.
Yeah,
like he's great.
He's great in this movie. He's better than Brad Pitt, which is hard.
Yeah, that is really difficult. But like his acting on like an emotional level, whenever he's like really sad, is just perfect.
You think he's gonna get a Best Supporting nod?
He could. I wouldn't be shocked, especially with the hype of him winning just like a year ago or two.
Yeah.
Like I think there's enough hype for him as a actor in his career at this point to get him a nomination.
So the title of your video is going to be
something like "Is this the worst or the first bad Quentin Tarantino movie?"
So
something like that.
What are your thoughts that bring the film down? Because obviously there's some stuff.
It's slow. It is definitely way too long. And even though I do appreciate this movie for the story it tells and how like there are all these different plots going on that like all just intersect at the very end, it drags. And all the scenes with like Margot Robbie, the one scene where she goes to the movie theater, it's so long. And it's long unnecessarily. Like you don't get anything extra out of the movie by it being that long. Where I would say like during A Hateful Eight, I feel like the pacing of that movie is almost crucial. Like it brings you into that atmosphere where you start to feel confused and you don't trust any of the characters, and you get to like know them all so intimately in this like little cabin in the middle of a blizzard. Where in this movie it's like what? Like you're in a movie theater? Like
yeah, and the pacing, like you said, the pacing is also my biggest problem. I think I would say the pacing is really not good.
Yeah, absolutely. We spent the first 2 acts of this movie looking at each other being like, I don't get it. I don't understand if I'm supposed to be enjoying this right now. And
even without the context of Charles Manson and all that stuff, it's really slow.
Yes.
Quiet, cat.
There's a cat meowing right now. But
love you.
That's the biggest detriment to the movie. I would say, other than that, it felt a little too Tarantino to me sometimes, where it's like there would be just random moments of dialogue between characters that like never appear in the movie again. That like the one where it's like they're describing the relationship of Sharon Tate at that Playboy Mansion scene.
And those characters
and it's
never
like,
come back.
It's all kind of just like stuff you could cut out of the movie to get the movie at a shorter length because it's just too long. And even like the scene with the blind guy George, where it's like it just kind of takes forever.
Yeah, but I mean, that was like one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie because the tension is built so effectively to where it's like George is dead.
He's definitely, Quentin Tarantino, that is definitely amazing at building tension. He's a master at it, I would say. Especially like if you look at, I think maybe 20 of the greatest minutes he's ever filmed or ever been put to film in the beginning of Inglourious Bastards. Like that scene, I think, is one of the best executions of making a scene tense, and it definitely shows in this movie. His chops as a director definitely show in this movie. It's just, is it as good as Django Unchained? No way. It's just not. It's not up there. It's not a Reservoir Dogs. It's not a Pulp Fiction. It's just not at that level.
It's
that
like
being said,
it's a Jackie Brown.
Yeah, if anybody else directed this movie, you would be praising them as like if it was an up and comer, it would be like, wow, that's a really good movie for somebody who just kind of got into it. And definitely, I wouldn't say I left this movie not satisfied, because it really does reward you at the end for your patience. It's like you sat through 3 hours of this movie. We're going to give you an awesome little fight scene between the murderers and Cliff Booth while he's high on acid. Like, it does deliver at the end.
But it's not a movie that you're going to rush back to see again.
Yeah, absolutely not. But that being said, is it a good film? The answer is yes. It is not a bad film by Quentin Tarantino. It's definitely on the bottom of his list, but it is still very good. In my opinion, he's never once made a bad movie.
No. Have you seen Jackie Brown?
I have.
It's kind of slow too, actually.
That's slow, and that's more towards the bottom of my list. But like, still, it's an entertaining movie. Right. He can't make a movie that really isn't entertaining. This is the closest to that I've seen, but still very good. So,
go see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is what I would say. Educate yourself on the real life Charles Manson stuff.
Absolutely. It'll make the movie much better.
Much better. And that's pretty much all I got to say. All Tarantino movies for me age finely.
Yeah, they
Whereas,
do.
like, when I walked out of this movie, I was a bit confused and I didn't like it. But as I educated myself more, I learned more. I really liked the movie. But
and
that's also a question that I wanted to raise really quickly, though, is like, is that a fault of the movie? Should the movie do a better job of educating you or having you know information that you should know before you walk into it?
You know, it's kind of
interesting.
It's kind of interesting. I don't know if it's so much the movie's responsibility. I think it's more just a coincidence or a bad thing that it just happens to be a very not widely known story, at least for our generation. But like even at the end of the movie though, Kurt Russell narrates this movie. And the narration is very far and few between in the first and second act. But then when it gets to like the ending of the movie, there's like this whole moment where it's like, I guess Quentin Tarantino realized he needed to kind of spell everything out for everybody and what situation was about to unfold. And I think part of that is just an issue with informing the audience of exactly where everybody is and what they're doing and all that. It might be him just trying to be stylish, but I did kind of feel like it's him going, all right, we kind of got to explain where all the pieces on the chessboard are for everybody. So I would say it's not Tarantino's fault, but it is just kind of like an interesting thing to pick. But another thing I'd like to just briefly point out, because I don't think we've mentioned it, is this movie is pretty funny. It's almost a comedy at some points. There's not much I have to say about that. It's pointless for me to explain all the jokes in the movie or anything like that, but Leonardo DiCaprio had made me laugh 1,000 times in that movie. And when I wasn't understanding what was happening, I was still enjoying it because it was funny. And like the Bruce Lee stuff too, where Brad Pitt fights Bruce Lee, it's great. So there's definitely a lot to enjoy in this movie, and we would recommend it highly, I would say.
An 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Solid B. Amongst a filmography of A's for sure. So definitely we recommend you go check it out. And I think that's about our time. So we're very grateful that you took the time to listen to us talk about this subject. And we hope you enjoy the film.
We out.
Peace on the streets.